What's going on, everybody? Jumping on here to recap Steelers, Bears. Pittsburgh falls in this one on the road. Probably a closer game on the scoreboard than it really felt watching live. And if you guys recall, if you listened to the preview before the game, I kind of talked about like how the Steelers and Bears are a little bit similar in the aspect of sometimes you'll watch their games, and even if they win, you're kind of like looking at back at it like, man, did they really play that well? So that was kind of how I was feeling like watching the game yesterday, like even trying to do like my recap for Steelers now. I was just kind of baffled at like how the entire contest kind of unfolded. Not that a lot of stuff really should have surprised me, but I was kind of a little bit of like lost for words on how to like break it all down. So I wanted to get back, watch the game over again in its entirety. Did that last night and then watched the film this morning. So I have a lot more to say now that I have more clarity on what actually happened. So want to break those things down for you guys. Obviously, Pittsburgh now falls to 6-5. They are currently out of the playoffs as of right now. They would be a couple spots short of the wild card, with Baltimore leading the division. And now the Steelers are going to see the Bills next week on 10 days rest at home. So, I mean, that's about as must win as it possibly can get, like at this stage of the calendar year for them, just because, they've already got a loss to the Chargers, who are in the wild card spot. And then, the Bills are going to be a wild card team more than likely as well. So, big game coming up, but I want to talk a lot about this one. Going back and watching the game, I thought that some of the things positive that I took from it, really watching live, was that you could just tell the Steelers offensive line played extremely, extremely well in this game, both in the run game and in pass protection. I thought really the collective group, like all five guys, did some really nice things in this one. I thought Troy Fautanu in pass protection was really, really good. I thought Zach Frazier had really nice moments in the run game. I thought Mason McCormick had really nice moments in the run game. Isaac Sayabalo was really good. They were able to create more displacement on the line of scrimmage against that smaller Bears interior, which is one of the things I really wanted to see coming in, because I felt like they had the advantage in that regard. And, even though the Steelers have lost quite a few games recently, something John and I have talked about on the podcast is that, the Steelers' offensive line is definitely trending up. The right side of the offensive line in particular, I think with Frazier, McCormick, and Fautanu are all like arrow pointing up in the right direction. I think the right tackle spot, I mean, I think he's an absolute stud, man. Like, you go back and watch some of his one-on-one reps against Montez Sweat. I mean, there are some truly dominant reps one-on-one where he's not getting any help. So to see that stuff from a guy this early in his career is really encouraging. And then just in the run game, I mean, the Steelers ran the ball pretty much however they wanted to in this game. A 57% rushing success rate, 50% for Jalen Warren, 70% for Kenneth Gainwell. They got a couple explosive plays, obviously one of those being the really innovative kind of tush push, kind of similar to that play that the Ravens ran last week, but instead of having the quarterback keep it, Hayward takes a snap and pitches or hands it off to Gainwell, who runs forward. I thought that design was awesome. And I really thought that Arthur Smith called a really excellent game, particularly early in the first half. You could tell a lot of their stuff was really taking advantage of like the newness and inexperience of the Bears' second level defenders. It was a lot of motion, using a lot of play action, getting the ball out, spin the ball out quickly to the flat, using a lot of screens, just trying to mess with their eyes. And largely that was working. I mean, they moved the ball pretty much at will for the majority of the day. So I thought, the game plan wise looked pretty good from my vantage point. There were certainly some things missing towards the end of the game that I think kind of show you where some of the fatal flaws lie with this offense. But, as a group up front in the run game, they've introduced like more gap and more power stuff into the fold to complement their zone heavy approach. And it's been really fun to watch that come together. And like, honestly, it's the number one thing that I wanted to see coming into the season. I'm repeating myself, I know, but the number one thing for me was not a playoff win. It wasn't making the playoffs, winning record, any of that. It was just, I wanted to see the offensive line come together and this be a good ecosystem to put a young quarterback in next year. And I feel like right now I can, not definitively say, because we've still got time to play, but I can definitely say that I'm happy with the progress of that group. So that's the good part. The bad part is the passing game is extremely limited. Like, outside of some of the underneath stuff, taking advantage of the yards after catch and things of that nature. Like, they had some really nice designs early in the game that they just kept going back to, which is like they have they'll run like a stick concept to one side, and they'll kind of have this escort screen to the other side as the check down. And that's cool. That's something that's like a league wide trend right now. but there's just like no teeth to this like passing attack whatsoever. Like they just can't push the ball down the field. Good Twitter follow. Ben Fennell tweeted this out earlier, which was something I was going to bring up in the recap. It just didn't have the stat for it. The Steelers haven't completed a pass over 20 air yards in the month of November. I mean, that is crazy. Like if you think about how many games they played, 3, 4 games now, and they haven't even completed a pass down the field. And they had chances yesterday. Mason Rudolph wasn't asked to do a ton as a passer yesterday. And, anytime you got a career backup coming into play, you're always trying to grade those guys a little bit on a curve. It's just like, don't lose us the game. You could make an argument that the turnovers and things like that played a major part in the Steelers losing yesterday. But I even thought like the stuff that they asked him to do, like he just did not execute very well. Took the one sack was just brutal. They let Montez Sweat and Darnell Washington one-on-one a couple times. I would say that Sweat won one of those reps and Washington won the other, and Rudolph kind of ran himself into a sack. That's about what you can expect if you leave a tight end on a team's number one edge rusher. But having said that, Rudolph just didn't look comfortable like whatsoever yesterday. Underthrew. There is this kind of bizarre narrative, I think, because Rudolph's a bigger quarterback that he's got this like big arm. I've never really seen that, even dating back to his days as a prospect. But everything was underthrown yesterday. Just kept taking shots down the field. I mean, I think they took like 4 or 5 go balls. I don't think any of them were on target. A couple of them were underthrown. He has the one foul ball to the sideline that lands almost off the white. A really good kind of reflection point is like when you go through the film, it's just week after week, man. It seems like an organizational issue because this extends over like multiple play callers, multiple quarterbacks, multiple offensive environments, you could say. And they don't throw over the middle of the field. Like they refuse to do it. You look at how the Bears offense is built, and this is a little bit of a bias coming from me because I stated pregame that the Bears offense is like kind of my vision for what football should look like. And Arthur Smith does some good things, but they just don't throw over the middle of the field. And even when they design plays to go over the middle, they just don't do it. A perfect example of this is there was a 3rd and 10 in the first half of the game, and the Steelers are kind of running that like cross country concept where it's they got 2 receivers on one side, the outside wide receivers running a go, and then the inside receivers are running basically crossers. And what you're trying to do is get the ball to the underneath crossing route. It's DK Metcalf. Like the ball, this is a single high beater for preferably like man to man, but you can run it against zone too. Designed to get DK Metcalf the ball in the crosser. And Rudolph bypasses that and sees it single high. And he's like, okay, I'm going to take a shot to Roman Wilson. The ball's underthrown. Wilson does have like a step on him originally. The ball's underthrown. Wilson does a good job like batting it away to make sure it's not intercepted like the first one was when he tried to hit DK on the go ball. But it's like, okay, you would think, let's go back to the film. When we get to the sidelines, see the coverage. What does it play out as? Do we have opportunities elsewhere? On that play, Metcalf is wide open. So they go back to that play late in the fourth quarter and they run the same exact play, same exact formation. And he takes a go ball shot again to Roman Wilson, who is open, to be fair, but the ball is literally out of bounds all the way on the white. So it's like a never in history foul ball. And then DK like is wide open over the middle of the field. If he just hits him in stride, the defender defending the go ball, the fade, is got his back turned. So it's going to be like a foot race between the cornerback who is chasing Metcalf on a runway route and the post safety who is headed the opposite direction to the field. So it's just one of those things where like I don't know how many changes like need to happen, but like they can't push the ball down the field and they won't use the middle of the field. And I wouldn't even say that like when I look across the NFL and like how other teams are accessing that area of the field, it's mostly like zone coverage stuff, like manipulating second level defenders. And I'm not even asking for that. Like that's more of like the difficult stuff, like hitting crossers, runway routes against man coverage is like, that's like stuff you look for in like high school, college, man. Like this is like an NFL ball. This is easy stuff. I feel like, and the Steelers just can't even do that right. So it's just kind of mind-boggling. You look at like the end of game situation, time management terrible. I felt like, but also like you look at the fourth down play where the ball gets tipped by Brisker. I mean, they're asking DK to run what looks like maybe it could be an out route. I don't know. His alignment's like really close to the sideline. Maybe it's a comeback, but it's not open. Like even if that ball's not tipped at the line of scrimmage, it's picked. So it doesn't really matter. But even like on that particular play, like there's no one in the middle of the field. You're getting like some form of man coverage. Just nobody in the middle of the field to throw to. And especially earlier in that drive, they started it off with Firemouth on a little choice route out of the slot. It's like, hey, like we can do this. Like, why don't we do this more? They get a similar look, and Firemouth's like running like a seam bender. Like they're just calling like four verts and things like that. So it's either quick game screens or like four vert type concepts, and there's so little, um, I guess like innovation with the passing game, and it's hard to really know, like, pin it on one person. And to be honest with you, like, I don't care at this point, like, whose fault it is, whatever. I just know it's a problem. And it's a problem because, like, the Steelers are, I think they're like 15th in points per drive this year. And like, that's pretty good. They've got the number one starting field position in the NFL. So that certainly helps. This is a competent offense that's like overachieving at the moment for sure, given the lack of talent they've got at important spots like quarterback, receiver, things of that nature. But it's just like this style of offense like has a very shallow ceiling. And you see that even in games like this where it's against like a bad defense, but you do have to put up points because on the other side, you got a pretty lethal offense that's kind of hitting their stride a little bit, and they just didn't have enough. I will definitely say that with how poorly Aaron had played over the past several weeks, I didn't think that the drop off from him to Mason was going to be like drastic or anything of that nature. But I do think the Steelers probably win that game if Rodgers is playing yesterday, just because I don't think he throws those turnovers, and there was nothing that Mason did that I would have said like, oh yeah, he's not going there with the football, or he's not doing this now. Would it have looked much better? Probably not. But I mean, I do think they probably have a better chance to win for sure. The whole reasoning about like why Aaron didn't play was kind of bizarre. I mean, Brooke Pryor had some really good reporting on this. Like earlier in the week, Tomlin said that, he was a veteran, didn't need a lot of practice time. And then when they asked him why they went with the backup this week, Tomlin alluded to the fact that he hadn't practiced a lot. So they felt better going with the backup, and they made the decision on Saturday. So it's like, I don't like, which is it? It can't be both of them. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. Like, again, like weird, like personnel decisions. I feel like we talk about like pretty much every week on the podcast. Defensively, this was a pretty big mismatch. I really felt like I said, the final score with the Steelers only losing by one score really didn't tell the full story on like what this really looked like on the field. If you actually go back and watch the film, I mean, guys are running wide open all over the place, and it kind of just goes back to some of the things we've talked about throughout the season. If the Steelers pass rush their front doesn't get home, they don't dominate, and they don't win the turnover battle, they just don't win games. Like it's not even that they don't even have a chance to stop people. In this game, they played a little bit more single high, but like even the quarter stuff, like was just right for the taking. It felt like Ben Johnson was pushing all the right buttons. One of the things that they were doing is like the Steelers were responding, playing some 4-3, some even front stuff with all three linebackers on the field. Whenever the Bears would go like two tight ends, and knowing that like guys like Malik Harrison are in the game in those situations, Ben Johnson was like, okay, like on early downs, we're just gonna either go like play action, like we talked about in the preview, like every sudden change of series, change of downs, possession, those things of that nature. We're gonna take deep play action shots. We're gonna get some explosives. And then when those guys are on the field, we're just going to spread it out, and we're going to create those chunk plays by getting advantageous matchups with our receivers and their linebackers and safeties. I think you saw that a handful of different times. I mean, a couple different plays right before the half. They are playing quarters, and like Ramsey's playing with so much depth. Caleb ends up ripping a bender like right in front of him. That was a chance to get off the field, or maybe end up holding them to a field goal in that situation. A couple other instances where like they had this play that they kept running on defense where they were blitzing Malik Harrison, but dropping both linebackers out in coverage. Well, the Bears kind of caught on to that after they ran it like two or three different times, and they end up putting a Dunze in the playmaker spot out of empty, and then they get a Dunze matched up with Nick Herbig in space, and they're playing quarters. And it's like, well, this is a situation, a technique that Herbig's not used to playing, and this is their number one wide receiver, so that's a big mismatch. And that ends up being like a quick like choice route. He breaks inside. It's an explosive play in that regard. There were just multiple examples like that. The middle of the field was wide open. Like it's so funny if you actually look at the passing charts from Rudolph and Caleb Williams yesterday. I mean, they're the complete opposite. I mean, Caleb Williams, that offense is targeting everything in between the numbers. Like you can actually see where the Steelers coverage, it was a lot of zone coverage yesterday, not much man to man. You could see like where the zones and the coverage were based on where the dots are located, like where the soft spots in their zones were. And then Rudolph, it's just like everything's like behind the line of scrimmage and deep towards the sideline or at the sideline. So it's just I don't know, man. It's just really frustrating to watch. Caleb in this game was only under pressure. Let's see, 15.8%. The Steelers blitzed definitely a lower amount than they typically do, only 26%. And to be honest with you, I didn't think that Caleb played like all that well. It was one of those kind of like misleading stats things. I've talked a lot about just breaking his game down. Like I think that people are too obsessed with like the completion percentage stuff. They're too obsessed with like the time to throw and all that stuff. I think largely that has been true throughout the season, but there was a ton of missed opportunities yesterday. I mean, he probably had 4 or 5 inaccurate throws down the field that would have, equated to about 100 passing yards. Definitely 3 or 4 explosives for sure, that he just sprayed. And then I think the receivers, like, probably could have helped him out a little bit as well, but I just, going back and watching the film, it just was like, man, like the Steelers are just way, way behind from a coaching standpoint. I mean, I know Ben Johnson's like one of the best in the game. I really do firmly believe that. But it was a masterclass from Ben Johnson. You got to give those guys credit. Like I said, 15% pressure rate. TJ Watt had the one splash play I thought was definitely notable. Really nice job going for the throwing arm. He gets the forced fumble. We talked about Caleb being a little loose with the ball in the pocket at times. That was a huge play in the game, but that was also his only pressure. So it was like it's good that they got the splash play, but just with some of the play of Darnell Wright, who was really good in this game for the most part, and then some chips and design with the heavy play action and some of the heavier personnel formational alignments, they were able to really like keep the Steelers edge rushers at bay to where they weren't wrecking the game. And then on the interior, they just didn't win a lot of matchups, to be honest with you. They were sliding the protection a lot to Cam Hayward, double teaming him a decent amount, but he wasn't generating very much push. And then I thought Derek Harmon was one of the stronger points in the game, especially in the first half when they were doing a really nice job stopping the run. He was really, really good against the run in this game. Having said that, it's kind of like what we talked about on the podcast when we were doing the player evaluations. Like Harmon's just really struggling right now to find his footing as like a true like pass rusher in the league. There are some reps even against like their backup right guard where he was just getting completely stonewalled. Where the Bears were fine, like leaving him 1-on-1 and saying like we don't think you can beat like our backup right guard. He couldn't do it. So that's just life of a rookie still in the developmental phase. But it's just kind of where the Steelers are at right now. The pass rush isn't dominating. Teams have found a way to get the ball out quickly. I mean, even in this game, Caleb wasn't necessarily on the Flacco, early Jordan Love type of spectrum, but I mean, he still got the ball out in under 2.7 seconds time to throw. That's over half a second quicker than a season average. They found a bunch of answers when the Steelers went zone, got the ball out quickly, and they were able to consistently move the chains and mitigate the Steelers pass rush. And when those guys don't dominate, the Steelers really don't win. And the things kind of fell apart a little bit later in the game. The Bears only finished with a 43% success rate on the day, but the run game kind of got going as the game went on. Definitely a couple examples of the DJ Moore touchdown was one. The first touchdown was a really nice route against Ramsey. You have to give him credit on that. The second one is just it's coaching malpractice. I mean, you just cannot play country cover three and not get any sort of like jam, reroute, anything like that against four verticals from trips. I mean, it's just like an automatic no brainer. We've got to check. We got to have something else, whether it's, playing like three match, whether it's just going man to man. They're trying to disguise it as man to man because Joey Porter is actually in the slot following a receiver on that play. And I mean, it's about as easy as it looked on TV. I mean, he's 15 yards open from anybody. So, yeah, I mean, it's really frustrating to watch because even a team like this, that the Bears, who are like still in the early phases of like their kind of come up, it's kind of frustrating because it's like, man, like this shows like the Steelers are a team that's kind of trending in the opposite direction where a lot of their older players are like, I don't want to say like decline, like they are declining, but they're still like useful players. Like you got TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, guys that are like still playing, like Jalen Ramsey, guys that are still like good players, but like how much longer are they going to be like good, like very good players is like a really like legitimate question. And then you got the Bears who have all these like young pieces that they're kind of building around. And on top of that, like they're getting like schematic advantages from the coaching staff. And I just don't feel like the Steelers consistently get that from their coaching. Um, and there's just plenty of examples on that, really on both sides of the ball, but particularly on defense. I mean, for this team to be middle of the pack in points per drive, pretty much like bottom third in a bunch of different metrics is just really inexcusable. I mean, I know they've got definitely some like warts that they're trying to cover up, but some of the numbers, I mean, they're 23rd in EPA per play, 16th in success rate. They're 27th in rushing EPA per play, 22nd rushing success rate. The drop back numbers in the middle of the pack. When you're dedicating this many resources to that side of the ball and you're not getting stops, this is a team that in order to kind of fulfill their destiny, like this defense needed to be like dominant or at least like very, very good, like a borderline top five defense. And they're nowhere close to that. So I think what you've seen like really over the course of the season is there's been some times where they look competent. I thought leading up to the game over the past 3 weeks, they've looked solid. I thought they played a lot better, made some changes, particularly at the safety room, but the safeties didn't play particularly great in this game. I think there are certainly times where you notice again just like the lack of speed on the back end is a problem for them, and it would have been more of a significant problem if the Bears have connected on some more of their shot plays down the field. But you know, I think it really leads me back to I think the most frustrating part, and I've been pretty vocal about like just how this offseason the Steelers did pretty much everything opposite of what I would have wanted them to do personally, as from a fan or just from an objective standpoint. But I understand the Steelers' philosophy of they want to maximize whatever the year that they're in. They want to maximize their short-term goal as best as possible, and I get that. The problem is, it's frustrating for them because everything has worked out in their favor this year for that vision to potentially come true. You look at the AFC, the Chiefs, dumpster fire. They've been really unlucky, but also just like outside of the quarterback, they've got some real deal issues. Baltimore, same situation. Lamar Jackson misses a good chunk of the season, and they're a mess throughout the first 6 weeks. Really like a zombie, if you would. Easy chance to put those guys away. Joe Burrow, Trey Hendrickson missed most of the season for Cincinnati. Even other teams around the AFC. You look at the Buffalo Bills, historically bad defense, historically bad run defense. So all of these teams, like with the alien quarterbacks, Justin Herbert, the Chargers, they're playing like seventh string offensive linemen. I mean, the AFC is so bad this year, and it should be wide open to where the Steelers plan we're going to try to be competitive every single season. Like we're not gonna think like long term, like whatsoever. We're gonna try to be competitive. This is the one year where things actually worked out to where that would make sense, to where you're not just gonna get to the playoffs and be like, they have the better quarterback, they're gonna beat us. And they still couldn't like take advantage of it. And you're sitting 6-5 outside the wild card spot. It's just like, man, like even when they're playing, like the process of their playing, like the process doesn't make sense to me and their plan works. It's just like the execution of the plan doesn't actually like come to fruition. And it's just frustrating, man, like where to go from here. But I don't know. Tougher schedule coming up for sure. I mean, you're looking at still got the Bills, the Lions, the Ravens twice. Easier, very very winnable games that they'll be heavily favored in the Browns and the Dolphins. But you're going to need to get to 10 wins for sure to have a shot at the division. I think the wild card, but unless they're able to win this weekend, the wild card is just out of the question. Unless they beat Buffalo, then it's kind of back on the table. But you're not gonna. I don't think 10-7 is going to get it done in the wild card. I mean, there may be some like tiebreaker things that would break between like them and Jacksonville, but even their schedule is kind of light. But you never know what Jack's team's going to show up. So I guess that's too early to kind of say that. But I'm sure the Chiefs will probably still find a way to get back in the mix here. But I don't know, man. I'm frustrated. I'm sure I'll have a lot of content coming up this week. Like I said, a lot of draft stuff coming on the way for me. The Steelers have the 15th pick in the draft as of today. Yes, I've checked Tankathon like multiple times over the past 24 hours. So I don't know. I'm sure you guys are frustrated too. But on the way out, just if you could do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop me a comment. Let me know what your biggest frustration is, anything that you guys want to see in the film room this week, anything that you guys want me and John to talk about on the podcast. And I'll try to answer those questions as I can in the comments, talk about some of those things on the channel just in the coming days. But I appreciate the continued support, guys. You guys enjoy the rest of your week. Peace and love.